Good evening, everybody. Happy Kwanzaa. Welcome back. We are here to celebrate night 2 of a modern Kwanzaa celebration. I'm so thrilled that you were able to join us. Last night, we had a fantastic discussion about umoja or unity, and tonight we are covering Kujichagulia. We're celebrating self-determination. I have a very, very special guest this evening. A lot of you will be familiar with him. If not, it is my privilege to introduce to you Chanda Branch. He is a Raleigh native. He's truly dedicated his life to serving and improving this city in countless ways. He serves as city council member to District C, which encompasses South and Southeast Raleigh. He's a past mayor pro tem. He is a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and he is an alpha man, but most importantly, y'all, he is my man. Y'all, welcome my husband to this show. We do this every year. Yay! Baby, it's Kwanzaa.
Yes, thank you for having me. We do it every year. I'm glad to be back. So I look forward to, spending this time and talking about self-determination.
So here's the fun part. You are a constant guest. You have been on all 3 seasons. You're the only person who has that distinct honor. But every other season, you have been on for night 1. So how does it feel to be in for night 2 for Kujichagulia when we talk about self-determination?
It feels good. This is actually one of my favorite principles. I have 2 that I love. Nia is the other one. Those 2, I think, round me with purpose and self-determination and try to keep me going throughout the year. So coming for night 2, I'm fine with it because I always know I'm first in your heart.
Oh, that's my man's. So the celebration of Kwanzaa, what has it meant to you? Like, first of all, did I introduce Kwanzaa to you? I feel like I might have brought Kwanzaa into your life.
So I was aware of Kwanzaa before we met and before we got married, but the consistency of Kwanzaa and celebrating is something that you brought into our family. And it's something that, I appreciate because it helps me kind of reset through the holidays and even throughout the year when, we talk about certain things and do touch points, that's been very helpful for me.
I have enjoyed having someone to celebrate with. When Kwanzaa was introduced to me in my childhood, it was from the standpoint of like a once yearly celebration. We did all our candles on the same night. It was with a large organization. There was a big party and a big to-do. And that was my understanding of Kwanzaa and what it was as I grew up. And so I want to publicly thank you for allowing me to like dive off the side of the Kwanzaa cliff in 2020. I went into this deep dive mode, into this hyper focus, almost a fixation around Kwanzaa and the celebration of it. We had just had this baby. We were locked down in the pandemic, and I was looking for things. I had knitted everything that I could knit. I had crocheted anything that would stand still. I had taken up hand lettering and embroidery, and like all of it was feeling kind of empty at the moment. And so researching and learning about Kwanzaa was something that was really important because I felt like I wanted to bring some joy and something special into our home. And as a family unit, I was looking for something that I was going to establish that was sort of my contribution to the household. And I wrote the book. And I said, babe, I think I want to do this special. Will you be my first guest? And he was like, yes. He said yes. He didn't make a big deal about it or anything. And it went off without a hitch that first night. And that gave me the confidence that I needed to continue and go through the rest of the specials for that year and then to come back in future years. So y'all, Chanda Branch is a huge reason for this broadcast continuing to exist, this tradition continuing to exist, his support of me and my self-determination to say that I am taking this on as something that I'm passionate about and something that I'm going to educate people about, it's been huge. So thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you. I mean, just the way you have taken on this, I say, education of the
Okay.
people and of the community about Kwanzaa, and just sharing it. And I think night after night, you have guests on that are impacting our lives daily. That is very key and very important. So I say just keep going. I know during the holidays for 2 or 3 days, I may not see much of you. That's why we try to get as much shopping and stuff done, and relying on family to help take care of Carly, as important as it is, because, it's about making sure that, Kwanzaa continues and people really understand the true meaning of it.
I love that. We talk about Christmas. We are Christians, and we are firmly grounded in our Christian faith. And that's something that I think people miss, or that might be a misconception that people have, that you have to like pick one or another, or that Kwanzaa is a religious thing and it conflicts with your Christianity or with Christmas in some way. And it absolutely does not. That is totally false. But I think that just being grounded in our celebration of both has brought us closer as a couple and as a family. How do you see it? Do you agree with that?
I do, because, when we talk about, being, cooperative, economics and the unity and purpose, like bringing all the principles in, sometimes, yeah, I forget that a few of them from time to time. But, what Kwanzaa does, again, for me, it also helps me, stay true to the reason for the season. Christ was born, for us to take, our sins. And, because of that, what are we doing to uplift that? And what are we doing to make sure that we're giving back and that we're centered in all of that as well?
I love that concept of like, Jesus is the reason for the season. And then you flip that on its head. And as we come into Kwanzaa and celebrate that, what are we doing with these lives that, have been gifted to us? That's powerful. So let's get into the actual definition of Kujichagulia. I'm saying it because I know you're going to butcher it at some point tonight. So,
Kujichagulia.
oh, good job, babe. Y'all see
Yeah,
it?
it's like
Here we go.
singing a note. If I hear it, I can repeat it.
Like singing? Really? Okay. So, Kujichagulia is self-determination. When I teach, especially for kids, I use the reference of like, the little engine that could, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. That is the typical definition of determination that people come with. And this is different.
Yeah.
This is determining what you will be, who you will be, how you will be named, what you will create, how you will speak for yourself. I think that I agree with you when you say this is one of your favorites. I think this one, it just bears so much power in knowing for yourself who you are and what you want your destiny to be. So just tell me, like, what are your favorite parts of that definition? How do you envision it? And just help us wrap our heads around the official definition of Kujichagulia.
Yeah. So for me, when we talk about self-determination, how do we define ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
I think, have walked and lived that even more over the last 9 years. And those are the last 9 years in which I've been on Raleigh City Council, and making sure that I'm true to me, because one thing that is true, you can help someone and they love you at that time. Hours later, a day later, they may call you anything but a child of God. So having that being self-grounded in defining who I am and knowing who I am is very key, because people will talk. They know nothing about you. They only see what the camera show. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they only see what somebody told them. Well, tell me, who is somebody? And at the end of the day, usually that somebody is probably nobody.
Yep.
So that's where, for me, self-determination and working. And then when we talk about creating that, it's taking life experiences and looking at the things that have occurred in your life and how, for me, how I respond. That's where
Yeah.
you get creating who you are. You know, a lot of times we may not be able to control what happens, but how we respond to it is key and is critical to being grounding and staying true, and also realizing your upbringing plays a major role in who you are as an adult. I can think of the things that my parents did for me or pushed me or, you know, disciplined me on. All that played a factor in a role in who I am. And at the end of the day, you know, even as I get, you know, going into my 10th year on city council, speaking for myself, you know, being able, you know, we're just coming off of campaigning. Thankfully, I was
Boy, are
reelected
we
to a 5th term by the residents of District C. Thank you.
resoundingly.
Thank you for everyone who voted. Even if you didn't vote for me, thank you those who voted. And those who voted for me, thank you for showing that the work that I'm doing matters. I
Yeah.
always believe that people don't vote for someone just because of a name, not consistently. It comes down to work, and it comes down to being able to represent people and speak for people. But you can't speak for anyone if you don't take care of yourself.
That's true. I I I have to agree with so much that you said in the last like 2 minutes. You fired a lot out there. There's a lot to unpack. Um, what I'll say is I want to go backwards to one of the points that you mentioned, as a civil servant on the Raleigh City Council, as an elected official. One thing that I have always been so proud of and so impressed by is your ability to let stuff roll off your back. I've never seen somebody so even keeled, even tempered. Um, and when the darts start flying, what I have seen is that you are truly resting in, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I know about the situation, this is what I know from conversation with those involved. Like, you have really taken all of those things and wrapped that up. And when you make your decision, you can honestly rest assured that, like, you've done the research, you figured it out, and you are standing flat-footed on what you honestly feel is best. And what people have to say about it or what their perception is, you allow all of that stuff to like just kind of swirl around you and then dissipate. And that's something that I really, really admire.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, it's not easy.
Mm.
You know, having
It's not
people
easy for
call you.
me.
And I know it's not. I see it. And you know, one of the things I really try to do is honestly shield you and Carly from a lot
Mhm.
of the nonsense, a lot of the noise. You
Mhm.
know, part of that is not bringing it home. You know, there's times where I've pulled in the driveway and I probably sat there for 10 to 15 minutes before I've come into the house. But that is because I have to take care of home. Home is the place where, you know, I'm husband and I'm daddy, you know, and I want to protect that. And then also I'm son, you know, for my parents, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm a brother and I'm an uncle. So my family overall, I definitely try to protect from some of the noise of being an elected official. Um, but also I know when I'm in those meetings, I know what information I'm receiving.
Yeah.
I understand that unfortunately, when we make decisions, someone's going to be upset. And I think I've come to grips that it doesn't matter what decision I make, someone's going to be upset. So my goal and my vision is to try to always make the best decision that
Yeah.
I feel based upon the information that I have and that I've received, and try not to negatively impact, you know, as many people as possible. And some, times you may go and say, hey, well, 3 months later, I might have made a different decision, but there might have been different facts. There might have been different circumstances. It all depends on what that case is. And I'm not afraid to receive information, and I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And, I hold nothing personal against anybody, but it's still somewhat personal because, I'm human.
Every time you come back to I am, I'm like self-determination, because every label that you choose to take on and carry through the world, it matters. And you can't carry those things blindly, and you can't carry those things without really having thought about what it means to be, I'm going to take this one, a son. Y'all, there have been some challenges in the last couple of years, and Corey has really stepped up and been the dutiful son in a way that some people are never ever called on to be, right? And he has taken that on intentionally, and not out of like just sheer necessity, but like because he honors his parents. And he said it earlier, the training and the discipline that they gave to him has shaped and molded him into the man he is. And I can see when he clicks into those different modes. It's just really interesting to like be the fly on the wall and just kind of sit back and watch how it happens. Because, the phone rings and it's a constituent and somebody's going on and on and on about like the dead deer in their front yard that he needs to come like put in the back of the truck and haul away immediately, or they're not going to vote for him ever again. And in the middle of that phone call, his mama calls and he's like, time out, I gotta go. I'll get back with you. And like just watching the switch flip, so that he can be present and attend to the needs of elderly parents. And anybody who, doesn't have the blessing of aging parents, right, then that's one thing. But when you are blessed with aging parents, oh boy, like it's something you have to like really take on. Like, talk about just the challenge of when you take on an identity, you are taking on everything that comes along with that.
Definitely. And I mean, and just, as far as my parents and everything, yes, I have a brother, and, his job has him somewhere else right now. So with the two of us, I'm the one that's here. So carrying that help and assistance that they need, both of my parents are over 80. In January, God willing, on January 31st, they celebrate 60 years of marriage. So I'm blessed. I really appreciate that and want to make sure they have what they need. And one thing my mom's always like, well, I don't want to worry you. And I'm like, I'm your son. You need help, I will help. That's my role, and and I do it, with joy, because I have friends that don't have their parents. Yeah. They can't pick up the phone or call or talk to them. And yeah, having senior parents sometimes is almost the opposite of our 6-year-old, another set of kids, but I enjoy it, being there and called upon. But that also means I have to make sure I take care of me, and I have to find some time to unwind and almost, get in my quiet space and play. And, I know how much you love sports, but sometimes I have to sit there and let game after game after game play, for me to get back centered and not have to think about everything from, are we going to have an issue with pipes freezing, as it gets cold this winter, and have water main breaks. I pray we have none, but as a city council, we make sure we give our staff the tools to be able to respond. And those are the things that they're not sexy. They're not they're not going to get the attention of the media, The media is going to look for the controversy of things, and 90% of the stuff we do isn't controversial. It's things that have to be done. So you take that and then switch to the parents, the things that have to be done. Come home, being a husband, make sure the trash gets taken out, the things that have to be done, and making sure, our daughter, has her time, has her daddy time moments. Even if I've had a long day and she still wants to crawl on top of my head, it's being that
She
person,
does too.
but also making sure that, I work out, that I take the time for me, because again, as I stated earlier, if I don't find that time to stay grounded and, read a book or work out or just drive around for a little while, I can't take care of anybody else.
That's so true. And, as part of that identity as a husband, I'm doing a lot of bragging about you tonight. We're gonna talk about something else in a minute, but like let me get this out too. As part of your identity as a husband, it's been a tough year for me personally, for us as a couple. Not within our household, but like we have, as a unit and individually, both had some really trying moments in 2024. And part of your identity as a husband, part of what you choose to take on, is just like you need to sit in front of the sport balls and watch game after game after game after game. Like, you also make sure that like there's a bottle of wine in the fridge and I can grab my phone and just be on Pinterest for 2 hours, because like my brain has to vacate my body in order for me to continue to tolerate, okay, 4 hours, maybe sometimes. Don't tell everything, just because you know it. But but I'm just saying, like, the point I'm making is part of what you take on in your identity is helping me to be grounded in the identity that I choose, and the way that I choose to live my life and be present in my life, and who I want to be. And any opportunity that I have, any opportunity that presents itself, you don't just allow me to chase those things. Like, you actively push me and encourage me to take advantage of a lot of things that are not necessarily practical, that are definitely not easy, that are seriously not convenient, but that they contribute to my self-determination. And so that's something else that I think families need to think about. How are you showing up for each other's identities, and what other members of your family have chosen? I think that's something to think about, and to like actively like sit down, get it on paper, journal it, like really process through that, because it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't just like pop up and that's what people understand how to do.
Yeah, definitely. In order for someone to feel they get the space that they need to, focus on themselves, they also have to make sure those that they are close to have the space that they need to grow and to focus on who they are. And then when everyone is able to recharge, that's when you're able to have a meaningful impact in your environment and your community. So that's why, this one is, again, it depends on the day. It's like self-determination purpose, going back and forth.
And I think for me, that's almost like the argument between, it's not an argument, but like almost like umoja versus ujama, like unity versus collective work. Are they really the same thing? They're not. One moves from theory and one moves from action. And I feel like self-determination and purpose are probably somewhere in that same alignment, like one moving from theory and one moving from action. So yeah. So enough about like us, what's going on in our house, because like I know all the nosy folk are like tuned in with their popcorn. They're like feel like they're getting the goods. But let's talk about our community. Let's talk about like beginning with the city where we live, and then talking a little bit further, and stretching out from there. Like how can we help our community, or where do you find that our community needs assistance in getting to this aspect, this principle, the concept of self-determination?
So I'm going to bring the unity in as part of this conversation with self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what needs to happen, and one thing, I just had a meeting last week in meeting with some leaders in the community, is bringing about that unity for the community to self-determine what it wants to see next, what it wants to do, what it wants to look like. And I think that's the key. A lot of times when it comes to government, there's roles that government has to play, but then there's roles in which government can say, we're here, how are we needed? So that's the role that I really want. I know coming up this next year and year and a half is to reposition how people look at government, not necessarily for government to do it for you, but for government to help you do what you need to do or what you want to do that's positive and that's uplifting, because rules and laws can be made, but you don't get change until the community decides it wants to change. You don't get the development until the community says, okay, this is how we want to develop government, whatever level. Can you assist us? And there's certain things the city can do, but there's also things that Wake County has to step into, and Wake County has to do. And then there's things that the state government has to step into and take care of. And then, we'll pray about the federal.
Help us, Lord. You said something there. I think for a long time, the Black community has been stuck in the mode of what government is going to do for us, or how government works for us, or what government is doing to us. And we have been not even in the passenger seat, we've been in the trunk, held hostage, like as the government is driving down the road. And I think that's something crucial for every community to consider. How are we showing up for ourselves, and what do we want? And coming at it from an affirmative or from a positive standpoint, we want X, we want Y, we want Z, as opposed to stop doing this or stop doing that or don't do the other. Approaching it from that negative aspect, like, leaves a lot of room for somebody else to say, well, fine, you don't want this, we won't do this, we'll do this instead. It leaves room for them to still be in charge of a lot of the critical decisions that are going to drive our community forward. So how are there some solid strategies? Like meet. Like Sesame, is it Sesame Street or Muppets? Like the Muppets character Beaker, meet.
Yeah,
that's all he ever said, meet. And so it gets frustrating for me too, but I understand the value and the importance of a good meeting, but help me, Holy Ghost. We've got to do something.
And when you get in a meeting, you just can't say I move. You got to make some motions. So the way I see it is, and it's not just saying, hey, Mr. or Miss Government, I want you to do A, B, C. We have to get to the point when what we say is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Government, we want, and this is what we've done, and now we want you to help us.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can give a direction and say, we want this, but if you don't stay involved and stay engaged, then you're going to get the version of what you asked for from the version of government.
Yeah. Perspective.
So when we talk about self-determination as a community, we have to stay involved the entire time. And I use the election as a great example. It's not just you show up and you vote. Come January, show up to meetings, show up to community functions. And it doesn't have to be always the same person every time. We are a very diverse community. There's a lot of people that still live in our community. people who moved back, people who moved into it. So it's about working as a unit, as a team, having someone that can go receive the information, then distribute it back into the community. One of the things I always ask, and I've started asking, is how does someone receive information?
Yeah.
Because how people receive information also determines how government can release information. I mean, there's social media government's trying to use now, the website, we're trying to, and we even set up a community engagement, department. It's not even just a office, it's a whole department to make sure that we work on in community engagement and also communications. We have an external and internal staff that's working on communication. So when we talk about community, which inside of it you can find unity, but none of it works unless you look at the I, which comes back to you, that you got to self-determine where you want to go and what you want to do. So it all just comes down to having a vision and make it plain and write it down. So often we talk about it. We like today I went to get some stamps. And since we're after the holidays, after Christmas, I have some things I need to mail off. And just I had individuals say, hey, we want to meet, we want to talk. And I said, okay, let's meet, let's talk, but send me that information. Let's put it on paper. And I told them, I said, that way you now have it tracked that you've reached out to me, and that you holding me accountable. So as a community, when we want to determine our future and our next steps, we have to write it down, and we have to make sure we tell the story of what we're asking for. Writing it down and putting it, in your bedroom, that's not going to help anybody.
No. We just talked last night about vision boards and writing stuff down and planning, strategizing, SMART goal. We talked about all of that last night. So to see that coming back in tonight's conversation is, that's significant. And not only is it significant here, but I think that will probably show up down the road. I mean, it's the reason that in the book, in your guide to a modern Kwanzaa celebration, I actually have a whole section in the back dedicated to journaling and responding to those prompts and answering some questions and writing things down and getting it on paper. And then also in the Kwanzaa 365 training, there's a whole section with like planners and guides and calendars, and there's a breakdown for like quarterly and weekly. It goes all the way down to daily things, because these principles have to work their way into our everyday systems. They have to work their way into our everyday lives, and not just be, we get to the end of the year and now we Kwanzaa again.
Right.
Come on, everybody. Let's Kwanzaa real hard for these 7 days, and then we can put it back away. That's not what this is. And to see that that pattern of like writing it down, continuing to resurface, I think is significant. Is there, once you have these things recorded as part of our strategy, so we've met. We've got it on paper, we've recorded. How do we keep people energized to stay engaged? Because I know when I've been to 3 meetings and I don't feel like I'm getting immediate response, that microwave generation, we want it now, we want that instant gratification. When we don't feel like we're getting that, what are some ways that are effective, and I won't even call them appropriate, but like, what are some ways that we can continue to like keep the level of engagement up, and also to like keep the level of engagement respectful? How do we navigate that?
Yeah, I think the key is, even at the very first meeting, setting a time frame and timetable of when certain information or items will be reported back out. Because there may be some things you're asking for that, I use an example. If someone were to come to city council and they ask for an item that's not in our budget in the months from August to December, and it's currently not in our budget, then unless there's a way for us to pull money, we will not have the budget conversation until starting like January, February, March. Okay. So then you got to understand the timetable in which whatever item you're asking for, when it could be delivered.
Yeah.
So it goes back to setting those expectations and
Yep.
level setting. And that way, say someone is at that initial meeting, but they missed the second meeting and they come to the third and they say, well, I feel frustrated because it feels like we're talking about from the first meeting. Well, it depends on where you are in that process. You could be very well talking about the very first thing from the first meeting, but you could be further along in the process.
Right.
So it's all about level setting. And then every meeting should have a recap of what happened and where we are, but also how you set your meetings.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need to meet every week. So sometimes it may be okay to meet every other week or once a month or even quarterly, depending
Yeah.
on what it is you're trying to get done. So I think the key is just setting expectations early on and setting your own timeline of when things are supposed to happen. And I say supposed to happen because things may send a take along, send a timeline off, depending on who you need information from. So those are the things that I would say continue to do and continue to work on.
Yeah. It astounds me when folks who are at meeting 1 show up at meeting 10 and they don't like where we are. They just don't
I
like
mean, you have to stay engaged. You can't, say I want y'all to paint this building red and you wait, 9 months or you don't come back and they come back and it's painted and you're like, but I didn't want that shade of red. Like, in order to determine the shade of red that you want, it involves remaining in the process. And a lot of times, that engagement, I always tell people on city council now, is very rare that we vote on something, hearing it the first time in a city council meeting.
Yeah.
We've at least heard it 2 to 3 times before we ever voted. And it could have been in a work session. It could have been in a committee, or it could have came to us from another group.
Right.
Another committee could have sent the information to us. And so it was talked about. I use zoning cases as a great example. Before a zoning case ever comes to city council for a public hearing, it's had at least 2 community meetings. It's also been in the planning commission a minimum once. Normally they look at it 2 times. So that's 4 meetings before it ever comes to city council at a minimum.
And I know riding around in the city, I see those big ugly signs, those little yard signs that have the city logo and the QR code and the zoning case number, and they're stuck like at the property that you're going to be discussing. They have the website on it, or they have a link. There's a way for you to communicate. So like, if that is something that's on your route, if you're passing it, if it's in your neighborhood, you're seeing that signage and you know that like on this date, they're going to discuss this thing. And even if I don't know what it is, maybe I'm nosy. But when I hit that stoplight, I'm scanning the QR, like, let me see what they're talking about. And I think that, that level of, let's call it curiosity, let's not call it nosy. But I think that level of curiosity helps us to just be aware and I don't just keep the information to myself. If I know,
share it.
The neighbors, and then I'm like, did y'all hear about such and such? Or I'm sending a text message. When I open the link, I'm sharing it to, whoever else is directly impacted or indirectly impacted. So I think, we bear some responsibility we're talking a lot about like city, but I think more broadly, when we see things and when we hear things and when we know things are happening, we have a responsibility to like share that information and make sure that everybody is on the same page, which goes back to unity, which was last night, but also getting that feedback and continuing the conversation. Because I might think it's a terrible idea. When I roll up on that street sign and scan that QR code, I'm going, oh, they want to do what? Where? I might be upset about it. But when I share it to Corey, or when I come home and talk to him, I'm like, did you see where they're doing such and such? And he's like, okay, let me explain. That gives me a moment to process through it and to go, oh, okay, all right, I understand. I see that now, or I see that perspective, or I understand that. There are times when like new information will shift what I'm thinking. And there are times when I'm like, yeah, but it's still ugly. I don't like it. I don't want it. Right. And I think that having that conversation, that open dialogue about like where we actually stand, again, circling back to unity, is what helps us say, okay, well, now we have this one thought about the thing. We as a group, we collectively do not like it. We don't want it. So now what are we going to do about it? And I think that that is like sometimes where we don't ever begin. I think sometimes like people just show up at the meeting angry, and it's like, okay, but did you read the RFP? Did you read it? Did you look at
And for
it?
some people,
Did
they
you
want
decide?
what they want,
Yeah.
regardless of the facts. People want what they want. The hardest thing for anybody is change. Change is hard, regardless of what it looks like or what it is. At the same time, the thing that a lot of people ask for and they seek is change. So those are the things that we balance and try to handle within city council,
Yeah.
because it happens. People
Mm-hmm.
want to see sidewalks. People want to see road improvements. People want to see retail. People want to see housing.
Yeah.
Everyone says they want affordable housing. Sometimes people don't want it next door to them. So it's I say that tongue in cheek, but
Mhm.
it's real.
But you're absolutely correct. I want it, but over there.
Yeah. So
I
what we have to look at when we come back to self-determination and Kujichagulia is making sure that write it down, share it, and be willing to have honest and open conversations. And determine what are some things you're not going to compromise on, but what are some
Mhm.
things that you're willing to talk about and modify as
Mhm.
far as your view. And that also comes back to, when you look at yourself
Yeah.
and, who you are, everyone has, their values and their morals and certain things that, are non-negotiable. But then what are some things that maybe are negotiable? You may not like, the color purple, but if someone has a special event or a special thing that they want to invite you to, and they say, well, the colors are, purple and black, then, to be respectful, you may go find, it may not be a lot, but you'll go find something purple and you'll put it on to be respectful. Again, that's something that you could negotiate on, you can deal
And
with.
it's interesting that you said that you phrased it in that way, to be respectful, because my brain went to show unity. I like all of these principles, like they spin around each other and like they touch at the edges and melt together, and they blend. And it just is really interesting to me to hear how other people process the things that I hear as Kwanzaa innately after all these years of like deep research and study and reflection and participation and teaching and hearing other people out loud. It just is always interesting to me. So like I you phrased it as being respectful and compromising as a matter of respect, and I'm thinking about like compromise as a matter of like remaining unified.
Well, just because people look unified doesn't mean they are.
Granted. Okay, there it is. Ding, ring the bell. Ring the bell. That was good. And absolutely truthful. Like I think a show of unity is one thing, and and being unified is different. So I'll stand with you on that caveat. Definitely. You mentioned a couple of things that are also interesting. Um, you said that in self-determining, you have to understand where your boundaries are and what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not. I understand that 2025 promises to be a year of great shifting, that things are going to be changing, fluctuating, vacillating, all those other like Scrabble words that people might want to apply here. In all of that shifting, how can somebody really, because self-determination doesn't mean that when I was 15 years old, I decided this about myself and this is where I stand and stick and stay. It can fluctuate and vacillate and move like the tides too. So like, how can people, or communities or collective groups or organizations, how can we revisit our self-determination? How can we like find safe ways and productive ways of coming back to who we are and what we represent and what we stand for? How do we, it's squishy, and 2025 promises to be even more of that. So how?
I think it goes back to the other principle of purpose. Once you know, your purpose sometimes may change. 1 minute, I use me as an example. My purpose is I'm in the middle of a meeting and I'm serving the community. The next minute I get a phone call and I have to assist my parents, or you're calling me and I need to take care of something for you, or Carly needs something and I need something from there, or whomever. And so at that time, the purpose of what the need is shifts. And sometimes when we think long term of who we want to be, our purpose shifts. At 15, I used me as a great example. When I was in high school, I was watching TV one day and I saw a commercial and I said, I want to work for IBM. I said, I want to work for IBM. And so I just went off and I lived my life. When I graduated from college, the first company that hired me, my job was IBM. I'm no longer an IBM employee.
Yeah.
But my purpose and what I wanted to do, it shifted. I grew. And out of that comes growth. And I think what we have to look at is, as we're growing, what is it about us, as far as our focus is growing? So I think it's just growth determines that self-determination of who you are and where you are in life. And life happens. So,
it truly does. And sometimes
earlier when
life
I
happens
said
to you. Sometimes life happens around you, but it certainly happens.
But how you address it, how you respond to it, will influence where you go. And it may adjust where you feel your purpose should lead you. And that adjusts your self-determination because you have a new focus.
Yeah.
You've reset yourself, and to be creative, being creative, like, it doesn't stop.
It does not.
It doesn't stop. So it's always evolving. So that means as a person, you're evolving. And that's how, as a community, we have to continue to evolve. And I think about my parents' house that they bought in 1970. Beautiful house, nice house. But the way it functioned for me growing up and the way it is now is not the same. For my parents, it's great because it's just two of them in the house now.
Yeah.
But, for me to go back and go to the room that I had a twin bed in, that wouldn't work. I've outgrown it.
Yeah, that's good. I've outgrown it. And I think that phrase is going to be applied to lots of things in the coming year for lots of people. And just knowing that sometimes that discomfort, because like I can imagine you're not 6'2" or anything, but like pretty good sized fella, pretty good sized guy. And so like to imagine you in a twin bed, I'm like, so like sometimes people from the outside can see it too, that you've outgrown something, that it's no longer useful. And that doesn't mean that it's not useful for someone else, because like that twin size bed is coming in handy for someone else. Right. And it's totally fine. But for you, it's no longer a fit. So I think we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled this year for opportunities to move out of things that we have outgrown and to look to create new things in their place. I just really love how you phrased that. That pulled it together nicely. It did.
Yeah. I mean, we have to start in order to grow you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Because that's where that growth comes. That's where
Mm-hmm.
you really work on defining who you are.
Yeah.
In those uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
But it's also how you adjust, when they want to call you everything but a child of God, and they want to say you haven't done this or reported that right. You have to go back and lean on who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just got to hit people with the facts. You can never
Because
argue
they're
emotion
not
with.
going to change.
You say that again?
The facts are not going to change. The facts are simply the facts.
Yeah.
As someone who is raised in the house with a law enforcement officer, like I operate from very much from a fact-based standpoint. My grandfather, God rest his soul, Abaye, was one of the first Black police officers in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. And he did that job and did that job well for a very, very long time. And just the way I was raised and understanding the way he taught me and things that he shared with me about life and along the way, that's one that has served me well and truly throughout the years. The truth is the truth and facts are facts. Even when people in government sometimes don't. But we're gonna leave that alone.
And not always just government.
That's true. That's true. There are other industries where people want to mess around with like the facts,
That's
So
another episode.
it is, yes, a much longer episode. Speaking of the length of this episode, we're running up on our time. I hate that because we're having such a great conversation. And like what people don't realize is like as soon as I stop the recording, you're gonna come back across the hallway to this side and we're gonna finish the conversation, but that's not important. What I want to pull you around to, the question that each season I always wrap up with a question that I ask every guest. And so this year I want to pull our attention back to what has been given to us by the founder of Kwanzaa himself, Dr. Maulana Karenga. He each year will give an annual address and a theme for everyone celebrating Kwanzaa throughout the diaspora. So this year's theme is celebrating Kwanzaa in difficult and demanding times, lifting up the light that lasts. How in the world could Dr. Maulana Karenga from across the country know that personally, let's start at the micro level and then blow back out to the macro, that I personally am living in difficult and demanding times this Kwanzaa, and the celebration of this holiday is impacting how I am reframing all of that. How could he possibly have known that? Number one. And then also lifting up the light that lasts harkens back to the fact that we've been celebrating Kwanzaa now for more than 50 years and it's growing. I think people initially may have expected that it would like peter out and, fall off and just kind of fade away. And it has not done that. It has done the exact opposite. So just let's riff on the theme, if you will, for 2024, celebrating Kwanzaa in difficult and demanding times, lifting up the light that lasts.
So for me, I'm start at the back and go forward. When we talk about lifting up the light that lasts, I think it comes down to no matter what's happening, finding the joy, finding the good times, the memories. 24 has been a rough year. It started off in January, and it continued. Those first 6 months of the year, I know for us was very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I think about as we're ending the year and how we've ended the year with, travel, and ending the year with friends, and ending the year completing some task along with our daughter. That's the light.
Yeah.
There's troubles. We always talk about coal, diamonds, and
Mm-hmm.
coal. Um, you know, it's the pressure. That pressure is going to warm you, and if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, it's going to produce the jewel.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you get through the difficult and demanding times, is not letting the pressure break you, but let it instill in you, loosen the unnecessary weight of things that you don't need, and keep going.
Yeah.
Finding out who you are. So I would say, 2024 was definitely a growth year. you
Mm,
know Self-determination really it's helped me, and I look forward to 2025. I think 2025 2025 will probably be challenging on its own merit, but
yeah.
the foundation to get through 2025 has been laid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the light that we have to get, that keeps lasting, and knowing that everything that's happened to us in the past to this day, because 23 was difficult too. I lost a very close friend in 23.
Mm-hmm.
So those things from the past are the things that we have to give and lean on, and just remember to love and appreciate those that are close to us.
Yeah. I have to agree. 2024, I have by necessity had to redefine myself and determine some things about myself as a person that I did not expect to have to do. I when I turned 40 in 23, I was like, okay, and now we get to like it was like when you get to redecorate your room, when you get a big girl room finally, you can like take all the pink Barbie stuff out and put like fancy pink like bling stuff in, because pink has always been a thing for me. But I thought 23 was going to be my like big girl glow up and redefine, and now this is a new version of me. And when 24 hit me upside my head, I was like, oh, wait. I need some more things. I need a different thing. This setup is not gonna
Had to
function.
reset.
Yeah. It was a hard reset. It was a hard reset. And I think that making it to Kwanzaa and having not only this series to look forward to, but all of the act of creating all of this, like getting in touch with everybody, asking everybody to come and participate and celebrate with me. All the design stuff, all of the technical stuff, all of the things that have to happen in order for this to go off. That has been more than a distraction. It has been a reminder of how capable I am. It has been a reminder that, that what I do and how I do it is unique, and that people are looking for this forum and this experience, and that I have something worthwhile to contribute. And I think that self-determination calls on us to remember what we have to contribute and who we truly are. And I think those two are connected, and you can't just take them apart.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I certainly want to thank you, Councilmember Branch, for joining me this evening.
Thank you,
Would you
First Lady
please?
of District C.
I like that, First Lady of District. Okay. Will you please tell everybody where they can find you online if they want to reach out, get in touch with you, follow up?
CoreyBranch.com is the website. Corey.branch@raleighNC.gov. Email. I'm on social media, Corey the number 4, District C, as far as Instagram and Twitter. And I'm around. I'm not hard to find. You might see me in a local grocery store, Target, or Walmart, or just pumping gas.
All of that, all of the above. Thank you so much. I want to remind everybody that you can find more resources and information about Kwanzaa if you are new to the celebration and you want to sort of get your feet wet, or if you've been celebrating for years and you need a new context, a new way to celebrate, some new reasons to celebrate, then I want to encourage you to go visit my website, flow.page/living Kwanzaa. I've got tons of resources there. A lot of it is free, not everything, but a lot of it is free. And I have such a passion and desire to share what I have learned and am learning about Kwanzaa as I continue the celebration. So I'm also going to invite everybody to join us right back here at 7:00 tomorrow night for night 3 when we celebrate Ujima. I'm thrilled about our guest. I think everybody else is going to be thrilled. I am being really intentional about not spilling the beans about who is coming on. I want you to come back and see for yourself. All right. So good night, everyone. Hariza Kwanzaa. May your Kwanzaa be blessed. Good night.